Okay, in section 4.3 of the test, we move on to equations that involve three separate equations and three separate letters. Now, unfortunately, Desmos cannot handle that, so we have to be able to use the Casio calculator. So in your calculators, you're going to want to go into your menu, and you're going to want to go down to and write 1. That's your equation solver. It says EQUA. You hit execute. It's going to ask you, what type do you want to solve? F1 is the simultaneous. That means you're going to be doing multiple problems at once. And then it's going to ask you, how many letters does the problem have? That's what the unknowns are, the letters. So if it has X, Y, and Z, we're going to hit F2 in order to pick 3. And the cool thing about this calculator is when we solve these questions, we actually don't type letters in. So these, the calculator is going to be set up to organize it in a way that has all of the X's first, the Y's second, the Z's third, and then the numbers after the equal signs. So for example, in this question, we would type in 3, 4, and if your Z doesn't have a 1 on it or a number on it, it's just a 1, and then you would put the 3 here. So on the second line, notice I didn't put any positives. You don't need to type in positives if you don't want to, but you will have to put in negatives. So this is -2, this is 7, this is 2, and this is 6, and then this is going to be -10, this is 12, and this is going to be -1 because this has a negative and it has the 1, and then this is going to be -3. So if you're wondering where I'm getting all these numbers from, they're the numbers in front of the letters. So 3, 4, 1, 3, that's this first line, and so on. So now we just go into the calculator and type it in. Now you got to be real careful when you type it in because one mistake could make the whole thing wrong. So we put in 3, 4, and we just hit execute each time. And then we hit 1, 3, and then -2, 7, 2, and then 6, and then after that is -10. Then we have 12, followed by -1 and -3. So I would advise you to do a quick double check. So it's 3, 4, 1, 3, -2, 7, 2, 6, -10, 12, -1, -3. Because like I said, if you type in the wrong stuff, it's going to give you the wrong answer. So it says that the answer is 0, 0, 3. So 0, 0, 3. And the answers are written like this because it's X, Y, and Z. Now the question, the original question, which there's one of these on the test, it says decide if the ordered triple is a solution. There it is. So the answer is yes. On the test, I believe it's going to say true or false, so the answer would be true. Okay, so just to make sure we know how to type stuff in, I'm just going to clarify real quick. So if I want to type in a separate problem, I have to go into the exit, and then I have to clear out the last question. So if you notice right here, it says CLR right above F3. You touch that, and it clears out everything. So in this question, I would have to type in 1, -2, -1, and 3. The next line would be 1, 1, 2, and 9. And again, if you're wondering where I'm getting this stuff from, I'm putting 1s because the X and Y's don't have numbers in front, and then this one has the 2. So that's where all of these numbers came from. This next one would be -2, 3, 1, and 0. So then that goes in the calculator. So we're going to type in 1, execute, -2, execute, -1, execute, 3, execute, 1, 1, 2, 9, -2, 3, 1, and 0. So a quick double check: 1, -2, -1, 3, 1, 1, 2, 9, and -2, 3, 1, 0. I hit execute one more time, and it says math error. So I'm just again going to make sure I typed everything right. 1, -2, -1, 3, 1, 1, 2, 9, and -2, 3, 1, 0. So if it's typed right and you still get this math error, that just means that there's no solution. No solution happens anytime these three things don't cross each other. Okay, so let me show you another one. So in this one, you're going to notice we have, or you might not notice, but we do have some letters missing. So the first one, it does have all three letters. So we've got 1, -1, 2, and 4. So that's the 1, the -1, the 2, and the 4. Now this is where you're going to have to be careful. There's got to be a spot for X, Y, Z, and then the number after the equal sign. So this one has the X and it's a 1, but this one doesn't have a Y. So the Y is going to be 0. This one does have the Z and it has a -3 before it. So we're going to put -3 here. And then this one has the 1 after the equal sign. Now the next one is also missing letters. So I want to be careful with that. So it's supposed to go X, Y, and Z. This is missing the X. So the X has to be a 0. The Y has to be a 2. And the Z is going to be the -1 right here. So we stick -1 right there. And then after the equal sign is the -15. Then we can go into our calculator and hit exit and clear out the previous question. Hang on a second. Yep, so I cleared it all out. Oops, this has too many letters, so I got to make sure I have only 3. So it's got to have 3 equations going down. So we got 1, -1, 2, 4, 1, 0, -3, 1, 0, 2, -1, and -15. Oops, don't forget the negative because that's a huge difference. Double check to make sure it's right. It's 1, -1, 2, 4, 1, 0, -3, 1, 0, 2, -1, -15. You hit execute, there's my answer. -2, -8, -1. So we write them like this, -2, comma, -8, comma, -1. So I'm going to show you that one more time. Actually, I'll show you that a couple more times. So let me exit out of this and clear the problem. So the first one, it's got all 3 letters. So we would put in 1, -2, 3, and then -4. The second one is missing the X. So we're going to have to put 0, 1, -1, 3. And then the third one is missing the X, but it's also missing the Y. So we have to use zeros on both the X and the Y's. Because remember, like I said before, this is all organized alphabetically. It goes X's, Y's, and Z's, and then your number after the equal sign. So this one is going to be 1 for the Z, and then -1. So we go ahead and type that into the calculator. So I'll hit F3 to clear it. I already did. So I hit 1. Try it with the pen, see if it types better. -2, 3, -4, 0, 1, -1, 3. We have 0, 0, 1, and -1. Okay, so again, double check. I got 1, -2, 3, -4, 0, +1, -1, 3, then 0, 0, 1, -1. I hit execute, and my answers are 3, 2, -1. Pretty simple stuff. Now this last one that I want to show you, it's a little weird. You got to be careful. So the first one is basic. It's 1, 4, -5, and 39. The second one is missing the X. So we have to put a 0 for the X, a 7 for the Y, and a 2 for the Z, and then the 11 for the number after the equal sign. So the third one is missing the X. It's got the number in front of the Y, which is a 2, but it doesn't have a Z. The Z is not the 6. Okay, that 6 is not even supposed to be there. Any number without a letter is supposed to be on the other side of the equal sign. So the 0 goes for the Z, but that 6 has to go to the other side, so we'd actually have to add the 6 to the other side first. So it would actually just be a positive 6 over here. So now we go into the calculator, we hit exit and F3 to clear, and now we just type all the numbers in. So we got 1, 4, -5, 39, then we have 0, 7, 2, 11, and we have 0, 2, 0, 6. So I got 1, 4, -5, 39, 0, 7, 2, 11, and 0, 2, 0, 6. You hit execute, and there's our answers. So 2, 3, -5, I believe. Okay, so now what we got to do is we got to talk about how to get stuff to cancel. So let me just go back real quick and add a page. What I mean by cancel is, like, let's say I have 4x. The only way I can get this 4x to cancel is if it's a positive 4x, I have to have a minus 4x. Positive 4x and minus 4x would cancel. So what they're going to tell us to do is they're going to tell us to focus on some specifics up here, up above. It says, describe the row operations you would use to create an equation that eliminates x using row 2 and row 3. So first, let's talk about the rows. This is row 1, this is row 2, and this is row 3. So since they talked about row 2 and row 3 only, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cross out row 1. Row 1 is a distraction. Now, they also say to focus just on x, okay? So if we only care about the x, what we're going to do is we're going to cross out the entire rest of the problem except for that x. Okay, now using multiplication, we have to multiply these two things in order to get them to cancel. In order to cancel, they have to have the same number but opposite signs. So as you look at this problem, this is already a 1. So to get it to be a -5, because that's what I need it to be, I would have to multiply this by -5. So on the test, it's going to say multiply. It's going to have a blank, and then it's going to say by, and it's going to have a blank. So what are we multiplying? We're multiplying row 3. Row 3, and what are we multiplying it by? We're going to multiply it by -5. So if I was to carry out the multiplication, I would have 5x on the top because I didn't touch the top one. Then I would have a -5x on the bottom, and now they would cancel. Okay, I'll show you that again. So look at the strategy because that's the most important thing. First, this is row 1, row 2, and row 3. The question here says row 2 and row 3. So I need to get rid of row 1 again. Row 1 is just a distraction. Now this time, they do say, focus in on your y's. We want to get the y's to cancel. So that means if we want the y's to cancel, we can get rid of everything except for the y. So I don't need any of this stuff. I don't need any of this stuff and any of that stuff. So I have to try to use multiplication to get the y's to cancel. What I told you in the beginning was the only way they can cancel is if they're the same number but opposite signs. So I can see that they already have opposite signs, but they're not the same number. So is there a way that I can multiply the bottom, because it's smaller, to turn it into an 8? There actually is. I multiply it by 4. So that means that the sentence I'm going to write is multiply blank by blank. So we would multiply row 3 by 4. Now again, the reason why I'm not making this a -4 is because it's already a positive and a negative. So when I do the multiplication, so the -8y stays the same because we didn't multiply the first one. But if I multiply the second one, that's going to give me a positive 8y, and now they cancel. Okay, last one. I'll show you the strategy one more time. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label my rows, row 1, row 2, and row 3. They are clearly talking about row 1 and row 2 only. So that means that row 3 is garbage. So we cross that out. And then we see which letter they want us to look at. They want us to look at the letter Z. So that means that everything except the Z goes. Oops, I don't want to cross out the sign because the signs are important. and then I'm going to cross out all of this stuff also. Now, this one is cool. If I have the 6 and I'm trying to turn it into a 13, nothing multiplies with 6 to give me 13. So what I'm going to have to do on this question is an old trick that I like to call the old switcheroo. So here's what you do. The only way to get these to multiply to be the same thing is you multiply the bottom by 6 and the top by 13. If you notice, what I did was I took the 13 and I put it on top. I took the 6 and I put it on the bottom. And the only reason I'm doing this is because that 6 cannot be multiplied into a 13. Okay, it doesn't go in evenly. So that's why I'm doing the move that I call the old switcheroo. Now, the problem right now is that this question, it's not really done yet, because if I was to multiply these two numbers together, I'm going to end up doing 6 times 13, which is 78z. But see, the problem right now is that this is 78z, but this is also 78z. When two of them are positive, they're not going to cancel. So what I would have to do is I would have to pick one of these letters and make them negative. Doesn't matter which one. So I can put a negative on this one, which would turn this into a minus. So now they would cross out. So on this one, I would have two sentences. It would say multiply blank by blank. Oops, I'm not going to write the word blank. And then multiply, because I'm multiplying twice. So I have to have two sentences by blank. So what did we do? Starting with row 1. We multiplied row 1 by 13. And then we multiplied row 2 by -6. And with that, you have enough to get 100% on this section of the test.